A little bit more knowledge. I just did one before about the wet. I forget what it was now, but it was a Hebrew word or something meaning wet. To do with death, right? So yeah, check that video if you haven't watched it, right? But I've just typed in wet death, right? Wet death. And basically you get a lot of ideas about wet death like this, yeah. Death rattle, and apparently it's a crackling wet noise. The death rattle, right? So it's associated the wet with the death, right? Wet brain affecting life expectancy. Wet and dry drownings. Yeah, relaxes water enters lungs, right? Of course, you've got to put this in context, right, with the idea of the floods, the Noah's Ark, right? Like the dry den, the Dryden, John Dryden, say dry in the den, dry on the craft, dry on the ark. And obviously if you're under the floods, you're gonna get wet, so you're gonna, death. Yeah, there's a few ideas associated with it, like wet death by Wages of Sin and Kathleen Windsor. So yeah, some funny ideas, like, innit? G27, that. Wet death by the Daring Elbows. Wet deaths, eh? Got these a few years ago, like music, wet, 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 right? A Scottish soft rock band, soft rock, like killing them softly, killing them softly. Yeah, these are a few, popular songs or whatever. Still going now, it looks like. Wet, wet, wet. Death, death, death. Wet floor, huh? Dry in Hebrew. Raw, tov. Raw, tov. There's Yarvesh. Yarvesh. There's tov. This is tov. In a tov, say tov as in mazel tov means good luck. So when you have raw tov, it's the day with luck. So it's basically giving bad luck in it, the wet idea of bad luck. Ra, which is a royal arch. Of course, Ra is the sun god in Egyptian, isn't it? It's the day with luck, see? They're giving you bad luck if you're near natural and all that. It's Ra, sun god, right? It's funny how Ra is the god of the sun. So basically they're reversing the type of thing. See, Ra's god of sun. So if you're a natural person, you get Ra Tov, which is the bad luck. Bound for death, like Pruithian. Pruithian means like, for death. So it's all to do with bad luck, cursing. Cursing to death and stuff. It's all, like hex, curses and hex, see? Symbol of Egyptian god Ra. It's a 6-pointed star to hex. It's like you see all to do with curses and hexes and all that, right? God, see, symbolise the creation of every living soul, right? Living. Remember how to think of naturals as dead, right? Widely believed that Ra was the first living being. The head of a hawk. If I was seen the head of a hawk before, eh? Right? Or Re, right? I remember when I was at school, we used to do a thing called religious education, what they used to call RE, right? RE. And Ra, of course, Royal Arch, right? the god of the sun, order kings in the sky. Ra, who is Horus of the two horizons. Two horizons, of course, being the duality between the tea drinkers and the natural people, right? The cattle of Ra. Egyptians call themselves the cattle of Ra. Again, symbolic of natural people being the cattle of Ra, see? The cattle. And Ra sent his eye as the goddess Sekhmet to punish them, right? Saxmi. So all metaphoric words, right? The sun as the giver of life. Warmth and growth. Warmth, see, and sun. It's a contrast that, read, to the floods. The floods, read, an overflow of a large amount of water. Especially over what is normally dry land, right, beyond its normal limits. Cut off by floods and landslides, like the mud flood thing, right? A flood barrier, right? A barrier between the tea drinkers and the natural people, right? Inundation, swamping, deluge, all these things are used in, like news stories, for example, and all that. And that's what they're doing, is coding. When you hear these news stories on their Hex News, they're basically putting coded messages in to their own masons and that, right? Downpour, cloudburst, that was Kate Bush or something, wasn't it? Something to do with that. All to do with a sort of war against naturals, what they're involved in, right? Remember Jennifer Rush or something, The Power of Love, wasn't it? Jennifer Rush. Burst into tears, you see what I mean? They like to cause suffering to naturals and all that. So it's all symbolic metaphors, right? For subjecting people to floods, water, drowning, like Noah's Ark, deluge and all that. Submerge, engulf, drown. It's all metaphors for what they're doing to natural people, right? Experience a uterine hemorrhage. You probably would love that, you see what I mean? It's like if it was a natural person or something. Flood, National Geographic. When water overflows or soaks land that is normally dry, see? Again, that's what it's all about. Global warming, more codes. The floods. What happened to Noah's Ark, right? There's the craft. Noah and his family went into the ark, and the Lord shut them inside so it would be safe from the flood. The flood. For 40 days and 40 nights, Dalit. And Dalit, double Dalit. The rain poured down, covering the land, COVID, and lifting the ark off the ground. Soon the water became so deep it covered the high mountains, drowned all the natural people, basically. That's the idea behind it, right? Noah and the Great Flood by Yehuda Altin. The marble sent by God in the year 1656 of creation. Funny stuff, eh? Representatives of living species, specially designed. Of course, that ties in with this Ukraine war hex, doesn't it? The Ukraine, the floods. So again, it's a hex against naturals, isn't it? The rain, Ukraine. There's a few people that pointed out UK rain, as in Royal monarchy rain or whatever, but the rain floods idea is definitely behind it. And all the pictures, look, it's all wet, damp and miserable and all that, see what I mean? And pure hex. The floods of it, see? Here's the Royal Ark, the rainbow. We get the rain and the floods and the damp and the wet and the death and the cold. You get this. Lovely rainbows and warm sun on the Ark. See? You get what it's about. Royal Ark mariners. Like the Noah's Ark people and all that. See, the family is saved from the floods. And it's the natural ones, see, who get the flood and get wet.